Could you actually own a ranch? Not a small backyard, not a hobby farm, a real working American ranch. Thousands of acres, hundreds of cattle, a business that quietly moves more money than most people's entire net worth. Somewhere in Texas, right now, a man is sitting on a porch, boots on the railing, cup of coffee in his hand. He doesn't look rich. His truck is 15 years old. His shirt has a stain on it. But his land, the land under his boots, is worth more than $11 million. And here's the part nobody tells you. He didn't inherit oil money. He didn't win the lottery. He bought cattle, planted grass, and waited. That's it. That's the entire secret. But if it's that simple, why isn't everyone doing it? Because most people don't understand how a ranch actually makes money. They picture cows in a field and stop there. They never see the tax breaks, the land appreciation, the government subsidies, the water rights, the mineral rights, and the hidden empire sitting underneath all of it. Today, we're breaking down the entire ranch business, how it works, how it makes millions, and why the wealthiest families in America, the ones you've never heard of, quietly own more ranchland than anyone realizes. By the end of this video, you'll understand something most people never will. A ranch isn't a farm. A ranch is a financial machine disguised as a lifestyle. Let's get into it. Here's the problem most people run into the moment they think about ranch life. They see the price tag. A working cattle ranch in Montana or Texas can cost anywhere from $2 million to $50 million. Their brain shuts the idea down instantly. That's for rich people. That's not for me. And they move on with their day, never realizing that the price tag is exactly why ranches make so much money for the people who already own them. Scarcity is the whole game. There are only so many acres of usable grazing land in America. Nobody is making more of it. Every year, more of it gets bought up, fenced in, and passed down through families who understand something the rest of us were never taught. Land doesn't need to be exciting to be valuable. It just needs to be limited. And that's where the story actually begins. Ranching in America didn't start as an investment strategy. It started as survival. In the late 1800s, after railroads pushed west, cattle became one of the fastest ways to turn open land into cash. Cowboys would drive herds hundreds of miles to railheads, where a single cow could be sold for 10 times what it cost to raise. Fortunes were built almost overnight. Entire towns grew around cattle trails. Families who arrived with nothing but a wagon and a handful of livestock ended up owning land that their great-great-grandchildren still live on today. That pattern never really stopped. It just got quieter. After the railroads came barbed wire, and barbed wire changed everything. Suddenly, land could be fenced, claimed, and defended. The open range disappeared, and in its place came something far more powerful for the people who understood it. Private, permanent, generational ownership. Families who fenced off the right pieces of grassland in the 1880s are, in many cases, the same families who still own that land today, 5 and 6 generations later. Then came the Homestead Act, handing out hundreds of millions of acres of government land almost for free to anyone willing to work it for 5 years. Most people don't realize that a huge percentage of today's largest ranches trace their roots back to a single homestead claim, a few hundred acres that a family expanded, generation after generation, by buying out struggling neighbors during droughts, recessions, and cattle price crashes. That's an important pattern to notice. Ranches don't usually get built during good years. They get built during bad ones, when someone with cash and patience buys land from someone who ran out of both. Today, ranching isn't about wagons and railheads. It's about spreadsheets, tax codes, and land appreciation. But the underlying idea is identical. Buy land while it's cheap. Let time and scarcity do the rest. Now here's where it gets interesting. The psychology. Most wealthy ranch owners don't want to look wealthy. That truck with 180,000 miles on it, that's not because he can't afford a new one. It's a uniform. In ranching culture, flashy spending signals that you don't understand money. The real status symbol isn't the car in the driveway. It's the number of acres you control and the number of generations your family has controlled them. This is completely different from how most people think about wealth. In the city, wealth is displayed. Designer clothes, expensive cars, a nice apartment in a nice zip code. In ranch country, wealth is buried. It's in the land deed. It's in the cattle count. It's in water rights that were secured 50 years ago and are now worth more than the house sitting on top of them. That's why ranch owners can look normal while sitting on a fortune. Nobody's checking, nobody's asking, and that's exactly how they like it. There's another layer to this psychology, and it's one behavioral economists have studied for years. When wealth is illiquid, meaning it's tied up in land instead of sitting in a bank account, People make dramatically different decisions with it. You can't impulse buy a boat with a ranch. You can't panic sell 10,000 acres in a market downturn the way you might dump stocks during a bad news cycle. That illiquidity forces patience, and patience in almost every area of finance is the single biggest predictor of long-term wealth. In a strange way, the very thing that makes ranch land boring and hard to access is the same thing that protects the wealth sitting inside it. There's no app to check the price every morning. There's no ticker flashing red. There's just land sitting quietly, becoming worth more. So let's actually break down the money, because this is where most people's assumptions fall apart completely. A working cattle ranch typically needs somewhere between 20 and 50 acres per cow, depending on the region and the quality of the grass. A modest ranch running 300 head of cattle might sit on 6,000 to 15,000 acres. In parts of Texas, Montana, or Wyoming, ranch land can run anywhere from $500 an acre in dry, remote areas to over $10,000 an acre near growing cities or scenic recreation zones. Do the math on even a modest 10,000 acre ranch at $1,500 an acre, and you're already looking at $15 million in land value alone before a single cow is sold. A single cow-calf pair can generate somewhere between $600 and $1,200 a year in calf sales after feed, vet care, and labor costs are subtracted. A 300-head operation might net somewhere around $200,000 a year just from selling calves. That's real annual income. Not spectacular by billionaire standards, but steady, and it compounds year after year. Government subsidies and programs. This is the part almost nobody outside the industry knows about. Ranchers can access conservation easement payments, drought relief programs, and grazing leases on public land for a fraction of market rate. In some states, agricultural land also qualifies for a massive property tax reduction, sometimes cutting the tax bill by 80 or 90% compared to land zoned for anything else. That single tax classification can save a rancher tens of thousands of dollars every single year. In the American West, water is worth more than gold. A ranch with senior water rights, meaning rights established decades or even a century ago, can be worth millions on its own, separate from the land itself. Cities and developers have paid enormous sums just to buy water rights off of ranch families, sometimes without touching a single acre of the actual land. Mineral and energy rights. Some ranches sit on oil, gas, or increasingly wind and solar leases. A single wind turbine lease can pay a rancher $8,000 to $15,000 a year per turbine for doing essentially nothing except allowing the turbine to exist on their property. Multiply that across a large ranch with dozens of turbines, and you've got a six-figure passive income stream stacked on top of the cattle business. Add it all up: land appreciation, cattle sales, tax savings, water rights, and energy leases. And a mid-sized ranch isn't just a business. It's a diversified portfolio wearing cowboy boots. Recreational and hunting leases. Many ranches now lease out hunting rights during deer, elk, or upland bird season. A single ranch might charge anywhere from $3,000 to $25,000 per hunter per season, depending on the game and the exclusivity. For a large ranch, hosting a dozen hunters across a season, that's another layer of six-figure income that has nothing to do with cattle at all. Agritourism. Some ranch families have opened up a portion of their land to guest stays, weddings, or dude ranch experiences, charging city visitors thousands of dollars for a weekend of horseback riding and campfires. It sounds small, but for a ranch with the right location, near a national park or a scenic mountain range, agritourism revenue can rival or even exceed the income from cattle. Every one of these revenue streams stacks on top of the others. None of them require the land to be sold. That's the part that makes ranching so different from most businesses. The owner keeps adding income streams to the same fixed piece of land without ever giving up the asset underneath it. Here are a few facts that most people never hear. The King Ranch in Texas is larger than the entire state of Rhode Island. One family, one piece of land, larger than an entire state. Ted Turner, the media mogul, quietly became one of the largest private landowners in America, owning roughly 2 million acres across multiple states. Land he uses for a bison ranching operation that turns a profit while also appreciating in value every single year. And in Wyoming, some ranch land has appreciated over 400% in the last 20 years, driven largely by wealthy buyers from outside the industry who want privacy, land, and a hedge against inflation that doesn't crash the way stocks sometimes do. Let's look at a real-world example of how the math works for someone starting smaller. A young couple in eastern Colorado buys a 2,000-acre ranch for $1.8 million, financed through a specialized agricultural loan with a smaller down payment than a typical mortgage would require, because agricultural lenders view land-backed loans differently than city banks do. They run 120 cows. Net income from cattle alone comes to roughly $90,000 a year. Property taxes, thanks to the agricultural exemption, come out to under $4,000 a year, a fraction of what a similarly priced piece of commercial land would cost in taxes. is, 10 years later, they haven't gotten rich from cattle sales alone, but the land itself has appreciated to nearly $3 million. While they've been living on the property, running a real business, and building equity the entire time. That's the quiet math nobody talks about. The cattle pay the bills. The land builds the fortune. Now compare that to a different couple in the same decade who instead put that same $1.8 million into a diversified stock portfolio. Assuming an average annual return, they'd likely end up with a similar, maybe even slightly higher total dollar figure on paper. But here's the difference nobody accounts for. The ranch couple lived on their asset for free, ran a real business, claimed depreciation on equipment and cattle, and paid a fraction of the taxes on it every year along the way. The stock portfolio couple paid capital gains taxes, got no personal use out of the asset, and had zero control over the year-to-year volatility of their investment. Neither path is wrong, but the ranch path comes with something the stock market never offers: a tangible asset you can stand on, defend, pass down, and actually live your life on top of while it appreciates. Now here's the hidden truth. The truth most ranch owners will never say out loud. The cattle are almost a side business. The real asset is the land itself. Ranching gives land an active use, and that active use unlocks tax advantages that raw, empty land simply doesn't get. It also gives the owner a legal and financial reason to hold on to land through decades of market ups and downs. Because the cash flow from cattle covers the costs of ownership while the land quietly appreciates in the background. This is exactly why wealthy families who have nothing to do with farming still buy ranches, not for the cows, for the land, the tax status, and the privacy that comes with owning thousands of acres that nobody can build a highway or a housing development next to without their permission. A ranch isn't a business that happens to sit on land. It's land ownership that happens to run a business on top of it. So here's the final lesson. Most people think ranching is about lifestyle. Horses, open sky, quiet mornings. And it is that. But underneath the lifestyle is one of the most tax-advantaged, appreciating, cash-flowing asset classes in the entire country, hiding in plain sight because it doesn't look like wealth the way a stock portfolio or a skyscraper does. The people who understand this aren't chasing hype. They're not checking their portfolio every 5 minutes. They're buying land, running cattle, collecting subsidies, leasing water and wind rights, and letting scarcity do what scarcity always does over time. Make what's limited worth more. You don't need $50 million to start understanding this. You just need to understand that the next time you see a rancher in a beat-up truck, you might be looking at someone quietly worth more than half the people in your city combined. If this opened your eyes to how real wealth actually hides, subscribe to Finance IQ, because next time we're breaking down another asset the wealthy don't talk about and showing you exactly how the money really works.